Part 1. The North Sea wind lashed across the jagged cliffs as Alden Vexley stepped down from the rattling coach. He was a naturalist and a junior member of the Linnaean Society, arriving in the coastal village of Graymere. He was a tall gentleman of 35, bespectacled, with a notebook perpetually in his hand and a leather satchel worn smooth from years in the field. The air was raw with salt and the stench of fish rot and kelp. The sky above a bruised smear of grey. Before him stretched the village of Graymere, a huddle of slate, roofed cottages and crooked chimneys leaning like drunks toward the wind. The village lay along a wood-scoured inlet, where gannets and puffins nested high in the cliffs and black-backed gulls scavenged among the shingle beach. He adjusted his spectacles and tightened his scarf. Behind him, the driver gave a grunt, tossed his luggage to the gravel, and left without a word. Alden stood alone. The village did not welcome visitors. Windows shuttered against the cold, offered no light. Children peeked from behind doorways and vanished again when their parents pulled them back. The only motion was a black-backed gull picking at something limp on the beach. A bloated sheep carcass, throat torn, legs splayed like driftwood. Alden frowned.
"Storm surge,"
said a thin voice behind him. Miss Fenwick, the innkeeper, stood at the top of a worn stone step, a severe woman with hair drawn tight beneath a bonnet. She offered no greeting, just a sharp nod and a key.
"Room's warm. Supper at 6. Keep your window latched."
He followed her inside, ducking beneath the low inlet. The inn smelled of coal, tallow, and damp wool. Above the hearth, a bleached whale's vertebra hung like a crown. Beside it, nailed like a trophy, was something more disturbing. A long, curved tooth, too large to be belonging to any carnivore native to the British Isles.
"Found that up on Gullet Rock,"
Miss Fenwick said when she caught his stare.
"Don't ask where it came from. Not if you want to sleep tonight."
She left him with that and disappeared into the kitchen. Alden sat in his room that evening, his satchel of field books and specimen jars untouched. Instead, he watched the sea through warped glass. It churned restlessly against the rocks. Gannets wheeled far out beyond the foam. A sharp cry broke the air. Not gull, not seal, but something deeper. A bark, a roar. He didn't know. Below the window, villagers gathered briefly on the beach. They left a bundle tied with coarse twine on a flat stone, a fish carcass, a broken crab trap, and a tuft of sheep's wool. An offering. The wind carried their voices up to him in scraps.
"Keep it fed. Nonsense, Watson. Watch the tides."
That night, Alden dreamed of wet stone, long shadows, and something watching from beneath the waves. The next day, Alden walked the cliffs, taking the chance to spot for common dolphins, otters, a couple of rabbits on the moor, and even some velvet swimming crabs hiding under the rocks. In the far distance, a dorsal slice of a basking shark. He jotted it all diligently, but nothing matched the tales he'd heard. So far, nothing. Later, in the evening, he decided to get better acquainted with the locals by chatting over a pint. The tavern, by the name of the Merry Seahorse, was little more than a driftwood box with ale and stout. Its sign, a blue seahorse with its prehensile tail wrapped around the handle of ale mug, and the fire inside spat more smoke than warmth. Aiden stepped in just after dusk, chased by the bitter sea breeze and a rising sense of unease. Inside, silence fell. Not total. Beer mugs still clinked and the hearth hissed, but the hush was thick with unspoken thought. Villagers huddled in booths, shoulders turned, eyes flickering like candlelight. Only one man met Alden's gaze. He was massive, bearded, with a leather apron still dusted in ash and iron flakes.
"Toll the rig,"
the man said gruffly.
You're the naturalist then? The London man?
Alden offered a polite smile. I'm here on behalf of the Linnaean Society. Rumors of a unique pinniped off this coast drew my attention. Might be a new species of faucet, perhaps a vagrant from the North Pole.
Pardon that. Pinniped. Faucet. What in God's green earth are you on about?
Rigg questioned, raising an eyebrow.
Oh, pardon me, sir.
The naturalist quickly corrected himself.
As in seals.
Toller leaned forward.
You think the sea fiend is a bloody seal?
Chuckles rippled through the tavern, not mocking, but nervous. Across the room, an old woman stopped knitting mid-row. She stared at Alden with wet, milky, clouded eyes.
Does a seal take a sheep?
She asked softly. Alden hesitated.
Well, it's possible. The local grey seal, while mostly eating seafood like sands, eels, herrings, lobsters and octopi, will occasionally prey on harbour porpoises and even its cousin, the harbour seal. Stray lamb would be easy pickings.
What about dogs? Asked another voice, younger, tense.
Grown dogs.
Children?
Asked the old woman. A hush fell again. The bartender spoke, quiet but clear.
Last month, Elsie, Crow's spaniel, went out to the shore after dusk. Next morning she found his collar 30 feet up the rocks, snapped clean through. No body, just a trail of wet drag marks back to the surf. The beast hereafter goes by many names, Toller said. Sea wolf, surf phantom, Poseidon's hound. But the most common name the folk refer to this demon is sea fiend.
They say the monster howls, murmured a lobster fisherman. Not like a dog or a wolf, like something drowning, but angry about it. Toller grunted.
There's bones in the caves they call the Black Maw. Some human, some not. All gnawed.
But surely no one's ever seen.
Oh, we've seen it, dear, said the old woman. Once, 1872, an old lobster fisherman by the name of Brennan O'Malley. Poor boy went fishing one night down by the coast. Said he would be back in a few hours. Later on that night, we heard him screaming bloody murder. He was found in pieces, most gnawed or pecked away by the gulls and crabs. That's when the offering began.
Livestock? Alden asked.
At first. But some say the sea takes what it wants.
The room turned out again. Then the wind howled low through the chimney, and a child cried out from the street. Alden closed his notebook slowly. The night carried on as each villager told tales of this sea fiend. One said it was a crude brought on by a sea witch who was burned on a stake. Some say it's the spirits of slain seals out for revenge, and one boy claims the beast to be the silkiest familiar. Closing time came, and with that, Aidan wished everyone a good evening.
Remember this, Mr. Vexley, said a warning tone. The sea takes what the land won't bury.
That night, lying in his narrow bed beneath a ceiling streaked with salt and smoke, he watched his candle gutter and fade. A dog wouldn't stop barking throughout the middle of the night. From the shingle beach, something answered. Far off, over the waves, came deep, inhuman sound. A yawning roar that shook the panes. The next morning came, with a decent breakfast of kippers and scrambled eggs on the table waiting for him. Miss Fenwick laid it out with the mechanical care of someone who performed the same task for decades. She didn't speak at first, just watched him with unreadable eyes. "You're quiet today," said Alden, pouring tea into a cracked porcelain cup.
Some days, she said. You keep quiet so the sea doesn't hear you.
Alden paused, spoon halfway to his mouth.
Is that superstition, or is that a threat?
Miss Fenwick didn't smile.
It's survival.
He finished his meal in silence, writing notes by the window. Outside, herring gulls circled, and the grass swayed like water.
On the stone path beyond the yard, a young boy lingered, arms behind his back. The child crept up cautiously, face grubby, clothes too big, clearly handed down.
"You're the beast man?"
He asked, eyes wide. "I study animals, yes," Alden replied, kneeling down. "Do you know of one?" The boy nodded.
"It walks like this,"
and reached behind his back. A drawing done in charcoal and red crayon. The beast. It had a long, sinewy body, 4 flippered limbs, and a canid-like face with too many teeth. Above it was scrawled in a child's block letters, "Sea Wolf." Alden took it with care. "Did you see this?" The boy only shrugged, then ran off. As he turned to show Miss Fenwick, she stepped forward, snatching the drawing from his hand, and threw it directly into the fireplace. The flames hissed, black smoke curling up the edges of the burning paper. "That's not for remembering," she said, her voice cold. "And not for you." Alden stared at the fire, startled.
"You might have seen something. Let's get up, identify." "It's not something you identify," she snapped. "It's something you avoid. And we'd all do better if you left it be."
Alden said nothing more, but in his journal that night, he copied the image from memory. Later, he walked the village again. A goat carcass had washed ashore, half-eaten, throat crushed. Children no longer played by the cliff. The gulls screamed less. The air felt heavier. And somewhere behind the chapel, a prayer bell tolled once, then stopped. The wind howled that evening, rattling the shutters of Miss Fenwick's cottage. Alden could not sleep. The image of the child's drawing burned behind his eyes. The beast has shape now, not just shadow, not just story. The boy had seen it. Others had too. He packed provisions before dawn, lantern, notebook, knife, rope, and his field revolver, a last-minute addition, slipped into his coat with his trembling hand. The cliffs of Graymere were swathed in fog by the time he descended, the wind briny and raw. Gulls wheeled low, their cries muted and skittish. The sea was strangely calm, too calm, as though it held its breath. He passed a rabbit warren, several bucks and does frozen as if carved in stone. One twitched its ear, but didn't flee. Something had changed in the very air. Then, at the far curve of the cove, beneath an arch of basalt teeth, he saw it. The black maw. Not the black maw the children whispered about. This one was lower, nearer the shore. Half submerged, accessible only during low tide. It exhaled a slow, fetid breath of spoon drift and decay. Alden lit his lantern and stepped in. The walls closed around him like a throat. Dripping water echoed through the tunnels. The deeper he went, the more the cave widened, almost unnaturally smooth. The scent of dead fish, musk, and wet fur filled the air. He slipped twice on slick stone, nearly cracking his lantern. Then, in the heart of the dark, he found them. Bones. Hundreds. Crab-picked, sea-bleached, sheep skulls, vertebra of grey and harbor seals, even antlers from a long-lost red deer. But there were human remains, too. A boot, a child's toy, waterlogged and gnawed, fingernails scratched into stone. He crouched near a wall, running his hand across strange gouges. Not natural erosion, but something by claw marks, etched in wide, sweeping arcs. Then came a sound. A low, resonant, guttural sound, unlike anything Alden had ever heard. It rolled across the water behind him like a promise.
He turned, and there it was. Emerging from the black pool at the back of the cave, massive and silent, came the Graymere Sea Fiend. It looked almost like a leopard seal, but larger, twice the size, with longer forelimbs, each ending in thick claws. Its body undulated with muscle, its slick fur a patchwork of grey and mottled white. But its head was wrong, elongated, with wolfish features, a thick snout, and small forward-facing ears. He backed away slowly, slipping on shale, heart in his throat. He whispered, trembling, as if naming it could shield him. Thalassarchus obscurus, a name he made up in that moment. Dark sea wolf. Gotta help him if it was real. The beast lunged. Alden fired once, the shot echoing like thunder. The faucet shrieked, a sound between seal and demon, and vanished into the water with a crash. He fled blindly, stumbling out into the pale morning light, his coat soaked and stinking, knees bleeding, eyes haunted. Back in the village, he tried to tell them. Toller refused to meet his eyes. Miss Fenwick slammed her door. Only the boy listened. He said nothing, just drew another picture. This time, the beast had eyes the color of a dying sun. That night, the church bell rang once, though no one pulled its rope. Part 2. He was determined to go back. He felt obligated to, as a man of zoology. The Graymere Sea Fiend must be documented for the name of science. That night, Alden's mind was filled with the image of that heinous beast that terrorized the coastline, Thalassarchus obscurus. This rather hostile variety of faucet seemed to have evolved a similar shape and a similar way of life to the leopard seal of the South Pole, though twice the size. Its body, though similar, has a more robust and more canine-like head and longer, powerful clawed paddles, perhaps to help with dragging across the shingle beaches and slippery rocks. The teeth is similar to the leopard seals, with long, sharp canines for hunting and unusual tricuspid teeth. The coat is similar, mottled gray and white. This species is shown to be a hypercarnivore, dining on a wide range of prey, ranging from your typical fish, cephalopods, and crustaceans to more meatier quarry, like its cousins, the gray seal and the harbor seal, small cetaceans, birds, including the eider and the sadly extinct great auk, and land animals. The sea fiend, perhaps occasionally wide near the tide pools and shorelines under the cover of darkness where, much like a crocodile waits for a zebra or a wildebeest, will it ambush deer, sheep, otters, domestic dogs, and the occasional Homo sapiens, if the beast is already accustomed to the flavor of this strange exotic meat. The beast seems to be a product of the last ice age or the glaciers of the late Pleistocene, sharing its home with other fauna like the walrus, the Arctic fox, the reindeer, and the polar bear, evidence that the beast's zoogeography across the Arctic Circle is yet unknown. Likely enemies of the sea fiend includes the polar bear, the Greenland shark, if both species share the same distribution, and the orca, leaving the sea fiend below these three in the sense of the food chain. Much about the life cycle or behavior has not been documented, yet as many locals would choose not to observe the species, believing the sea fiends to be a creature of bad omen. No different than the kelpie or the hellhound of British folklore. This will all change tonight as I return back to the Black Maw with either a photograph or a specimen ready for stuffing. The wind was sharp and bitter when Alden descended the steps from Miss Fenwick's lodgings to the fog-draped village lane. A pod of bottle-nosed dolphins rode the waves as they hunted for the mackerel and flounder. Gulls circled the church steeple like priests of carrion. The tide was pulling outside, slow and deliberate. It would be low enough by nightfall. He had made up his mind.
He stood in the center of the village square that morning, gathering what he needed from his travel chest. Thick rope, a fresh oilskin satchel, field knives, vials for tissue samples, and his revolver, now wrapped in oiled cloth. Every moment was practiced, efficient. His hands shook only once, when he folded his notes and sealed them in an envelope addressed to the Linnaean Society of London, C.O. Professor Cyril Hadley. He left the envelope with the wide-eyed boy from before, never stopped watching him. Wide awake, Alden said, then posted. The boy stared at the envelope, then whispered, "It takes things that scream." Alden didn't respond. Miss Fenwick tried to stop him. She stood at the edge of her garden in her long woolly coat, arms crossed, lips pale.
"You'll be bones," she said. "Leftovers for the dogfish, just like the rest."
"Madam, I came for the name of science," Alden said. "And if I must die to bring it back to the world, I'll die with purpose. Besides, what kind of naturalist would I be if I was to walk away from this discovery?" Alden leaned forward.
"This is no supernatural being, for Christ's sake. This is just a damn seal. A dumb beast motivated by instinct. This is biology. If I can capture proof, photography, the body, it'll be the greatest achievement of my career. It'll put Graymere in history books."
Miss Fenwick fixed him with a stare.
"You want to bring the creature into your world? Let your kind poke and prod the sea fiend. Give it a Latin name and have its skull on a shelf."
Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry.
"Purpose is no use when you're split open and fed to the pups, you foolish man."
She turned her head sharply.
"Go on then. Go and claim your sea beast. But don't expect anyone to come to your rescue."
A few villagers gathered quietly at the edge of the lane, their figures silhouetted against the grey wash of sea mist. No one spoke. Old Rig tugged his low cap low, while a mother clutched her child closer. From a cottage window, Miss Fenwick watched with crossed arms and glistening eyes as though mourning a man not yet dead. They did not stop him. They'd seen this kind of walk before. Alden took the long way down to the cove, past collapsed dry stone walls, through hills dotted with grazing sheep and watching ravens. At the edge of the cliffs, where gannets drove like harpoons into the surf, he paused and stared out at the sea. A school of porpoises, breached in the far silver, too distant to help. He muttered to himself, voice barely above the crash of the waves.
"If I cannot name it, let me at least face it."
The light from Alden's lantern painted the cavern walls in streaks of gold and red. The air was different now, warmer, almost humid, thick with the smell of the sea and musk. He carefully moved, stepping over slick stones and old bones. Each footfall echoed, a warning too late. A snarl sounded in the dark. Then a second, then a third, and Alden Vexley beheld them. Not a beast, but a colony. They emerged from the black like living tide pools, long, slick bodies glistening with sea brine, fur matted with fish oils and sand. Their heads, grotesquely lupine, bared their teeth, both bulls and cows. Pups, still pale-eyed and slow, others, vast, coiled around the cavern floor like sleeping serpents. And at the center stood the Beachmaster. It was massive, nearly 12 feet long, its body crisscrossed with scars, its blubbery chest heaving, as though the very act of existing was a war against gravity. His eyes glinted green in the lantern light. When it bellowed, the cave itself shook. Alden whispered the name aloud, like a priest delivering his own last rites. He stepped forward. The Beachmaster did not charge. It watched, calculating. The others shifted, but did not attack. Alden realized then they were curious. He raised the lantern.
"I see you," he said, voice trembling, and I will show the world. The beachmaster lunged. The storm had passed by morning. On the cliff above Graymere Bay, Miss Fenwick and Rig the fisherman stood together, looking down at the surf. The sea was calm now, as if nothing had ever disturbed it. Gannets wheeled overhead. The bell from the church tolled the hour. No body came back, but the tide brought up a pocket watch. The glass cracked, chain rusted. It lay in a bed of seaweed on the rocks, ticking faintly, impossibly. Miss Fenwick picked it up. She stared at the watch for a long time. Then she closed her fingers around it, pressed it to her heart, then turned from the sea. Rig lit his pipe. Poor fool, he muttered. They never listen. Miss Fenwick said nothing. She just stared at the water, where the waves met black maw. And if one listened closely, very closely, the wind almost sounded like a voice. Not human. Not anymore. Weeks later, in the polished chambers of the Linnaean Society, Alden Vexley's letter finally arrived. Edges salt-stained and the ink slightly run from its journey. It was opened by a junior secretary and passed along to Professor Cyril Hadley, who reads the contents with a slowly rising brow.
Thalassalicus obscurus? Sea fiend? A colony of them terrorizing a coastal village, no less.
He gave a sharp, incredulous laugh and muttered,
Romantic zoological nonsense.
With a flick of his hand, the letter was cast into the fireplace. The flames consumed Alden's final words before they could ever be published. No investigation was launched. A brief note was sent to the Vexley family in Surrey. Regret to inform you that Mr. Alden Vexley has disappeared and is presumed drowned during a private expedition to the northeast coast. No one from the society ever visited Graymere, and the sea kept its secrets.
Thank you for listening and delving with me into the dark together.
Please remember to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you feel so inclined. The more engagement this video gets, the more YouTube will push my content to others.
Thus, the following will grow.
All stories read in this channel will be available on Spotify, iTunes, and just about everywhere else. Links in the description.
Thank you for listening and feeding the cause. We'll be seeing you